There's a number of other things happy to talk about at some point. So if you got any questions like, what's your favorite karaoke song, or what cosplay do you actually do? Hey, I'd be happy to share pictures of any and all of that if you like. But for now, let's talk about Tokyo. Where'd my slide clicker thing go? There it goes. So we're going to be talking about a number of things. I'm not going to read this slide to you, but the Q&A was really meant for, this deck is based off of the webinar that we did about a month ago. Feel free to ask any questions anytime. I'll pause along the way if there isn't any, in case you were accidentally on mute. But let's get into the platform features. First up is App Engine. App Engine came out in the Quebec release. It was meant as our new low-code way to create and manage applications. It's now a year and a half old, and a lot of things have been added to it to make it easier to use. So it's no longer an MVP, it is actually a full-fledged thing. One of the things we've done is we've integrated Flow Designer right into the Table Builder. So Table Builder is a great way to quickly create a table, put together forms with Form Builder. A lot of this stuff is part of App Engine, and it's in App Engine Studio, requires an App Engine license. So when you see that $ in the upper right corner, you'll know this is a paid-for add-on product. You can still do a lot of these things without the App Engine license. It just makes it a lot easier, especially for the citizen developers. And for the pro developers, it's an accelerator. So you can get things done faster. One of them is being able to go to the Table Builder and not only manage your table and the columns and the forms that go with that, but with the click of a button, you get the flows that are attached to that table. Very similar if you've ever done like a right-click configure all. You know, you've got configure business rules, you've got configure UI actions. In the standard platform interface on a list, you know, you can be on an incident table and you right-click and say configure all. There's the client scripts, there's the business rules, there's the UI actions, etc. This is kind of along that same vein. It's all the flows that are related to that table. We've also added a formula builder because we realized, if you listened to our latest Breakpoint podcast, that a number of people were using App Engine. We were trying to get the citizen developers on board, and they would take a spreadsheet that had built-in formulas, and they say, I want to do that in ServiceNow. Let's take the quantity times the unit price and get a line item amount, for example, if they're adding up a purchase order or a request item or something. And they go, well, great, let's use a calculated field for that. And they would fall down because you'd have to know JavaScript. It's like, no good. What do they know? They know Excel formulas. So we've put in an Excel-like formula builder. It is very intuitive, very easy to use for people who have built Excel formulas. We did this on Live Coding Happy Hour a few weeks ago, and I was surprised for a version 1 how robust it is. There's still a few things that are coming in Utah and Vancouver and the upcoming releases. But the fields, if you don't have App Engine, you can still use the formulas in the dictionary in the calculated field. So when you open up and say, this is a calculated field, you check that box, it no longer just drops down to JavaScript. There's a choice field in there that says, do you want to use a script or do you want to use a formula? And then the box will change accordingly to that. Nice thing about the formula builder, though, is it's got like the IntelliSense or the autocomplete features built in. It tells you the syntax. That doesn't happen when you're editing directly from the dictionary entry. If you use App Engine, it helps you build them a lot easier. So you don't have a misplaced comma or a quote or parenthesis. This thing will stop. App Engine Studio will stop and say, no, it's not right yet. Whereas if you build it on your own, you're kind of on your own. Don't know if that capability is coming to the standard platform or not. Template sharing, we came out with the ability for, templates have always been part of App Engine Studio since it came out in Quebec. And then we added authoring in San Diego so people could build their own templates. And now we've just put a kind of like a permissions around there. Very much like you can share a homepage or a report. Do you want to share it with this group? Do you want to share it with this person? Do you want to share it with everybody? Very simple stuff. So any template can be shared with the right organization. We've got the ability, finally, to author emails in App Engine Studio. Email is the bane of everyone's existence, but a critical part of building most applications, that you have to notify somebody along the way of something. Hey, your item's been ordered, your item's been canceled, whatever it is. Notifications play a key role in that, and not having them in App Engine Studio was a gap. We have now filled that. You can author them. They are stored in the same, what's the name of the table? SYS email action or SYS event action? I can't remember the exact table name, but same notification table as all of the other platform notifications. Whether they're event triggered, whether they're based on a record being inserted or updated, they're all in that notification table. And now you can author them and say, I want this one to be triggered by a flow, for example. That's what you see in the little call out in the lower left of that image, is that's how that one's going to be triggered. Now I can go into a flow and say, send notification, not send email. Send email's been there all along, but those are authored and managed within the flow, kind of like the old workflow had a send email as well. If you want to centralize them, so when somebody comes back and says, hey, we need to change our corporate template, you can do that in one place rather than open up the flow with send email. So this makes it easier to manage and take care of those. We've also added a new capability called App Engine Management Center. This allows the admins to really effectively manage all of those applications that are in development. Customers are saying, hey, I've got this COE, we've stood up a citizen developer program. Now I've got 20 more developers or 200 more developers working to get things into production. How do I manage that? How do I get visibility to it? This is the way you can do it. There are configurable pipelines. So perhaps if you have an experienced developer, they don't need to go through a whole bunch of approvals. You can configure which tests, which instance scans you want to put them on. How does it move from dev to test to prod is totally up to you, very configurable. So App Engine Management Center is part of App Engine. Again, the $sign, got to watch for that. Any questions about App Engine before I move on?
Yeah, so Kevin has got a question. Do we think that some of the App Engine capabilities like formulas will find their way to OG, Original Developer Studio, or ES effectively is the new best thing?
A lot of these things are going to AES to add value. So people, I hate to sound like a money grubbing capitalist, but by putting these into App Engine Studio, more people will say, hey, I should probably get App Engine Studio, App Engine licenses so I can take advantage of that. It's adding more value to the things people are paying for. If we just gave everything away for free, people wouldn't find value in it. So some may end up being available on the raw platform, the native platform UI and or Studio. I don't know exactly which ones they'll be. In the case of like the formulas, you can still create and edit them, like I said, from the dictionary entry as a calculated field. But you don't get the benefits of the syntax checking and the documentation that's built in that you get from building those right in App Engine Studio.
Nice. I hope that helps, Kevin.
All right. So Automation Engine is actually a collection of some things you've already known. Part of Automation Engine is Integration Hub. That's where we create actions and spokes go into flows, and you can do integrations really easy with Integration Hub. It's also RPA Hub, which came out in San Diego for doing robotic process automation. For those things that don't have APIs, you can literally move around the screen and say, click here and do this and copy this value from that value without any direct integrations. RPA is a fascinating technology that I have not had a chance to dive into. There's another one that's part of Automation Engine that I'll talk about in just a sec. But what we found is similar to the way App Engine Management Center helps people manage the applications that are in development. Automation Center allows you to do everything from have an intake pipeline, comes with a catalog item. So people could say, I need an integration for this, or I would like to hook these two systems together, whatever it is, and then you can start managing that intake, assessing the value, prioritizing, etc. But it also allows you to manage those all along the life cycle of that integration, whether it's RPA or Integration Hub. Automation Center gives you that capability. Even better is how much value are you actually getting out of that? So when somebody says, I need to build this integration, you say, all right, here's how much we believe it's going to cost, and here's the return on investment. You can start collecting data from that integration to say, look, this thing just saved us another 20 minutes, and it's doing that 1,500 times a day. That ROI on that is roughly, a month or 2 months or 6 months, or whatever you set up for these parameters. That way you've got this information. That's what that second bullet item is about, the CIO ROI. You can tell the management, we are saving this much time, we are earning this much money, whatever it happens to be, based off of these integrations. So this is something that a lot of customers ask for. They said, okay, you've been telling me ServiceNow is going to save me all this time. Help me visualize that. And it does that. We've also got direct APIs right for the RPA, the robotic process automation, in that as well. The third thing, which has just been added to Automation Engine, is document intelligence. And I like to tell people we basically taught ServiceNow how to read. You may have seen this if you've submitted an expense report through a mobile app or something. It knows where the price is and the total and the tip and some of that information. We can now teach ServiceNow how to do that as well. It is something that you need to train. So when you get a purchase rec from a customer, for example, or purchase order, you can say, this is where we get the address information. This is the quantity field. This is the price field. This is the total amount field. And parse that information out into variables that you can then use in a flow, for example. So then if you wanted to put logic behind that, said, look, if the amount on this document is less than $10,000, go this path. If it's greater than 10,000, go this path. So you can add some intelligence in there right from scanning these documents. It currently supports graphic images, JPEGs, PNGs, and PDFs. In the future, we're looking to add intelligence for Excel, PowerPoint, etc. So the Microsoft apps are not on the table as of Tokyo.
And does this also work for emails, like incoming emails? Like we usually do, parsing through email scripts and get those in to fields, different fields.
I haven't heard anything about emails because those would be parsed from within the flow already. So you'd have an incoming email action that would do that parsing for you.
Okay.
So it seems like a bit of a redundancy. I don't know what value you would get by, document intelligence doesn't really feel like a fit there when we already have two solutions for it.
Two solutions for it, okay.
But Chuck, presumably you can take an attachment that's come in on an email, pass that into a flow, and then process it through document intelligence. Does that sound like a usable use case?
That would be I could see that as a viable use case. You're absolutely correct, because within Flow Designer, the elements are a little different, where you manually say, I want to get the attachments off of this email, and then you could parse those. Most commonly right now, as I just mentioned, they're going to be Excel files and PowerPoints and whatever. And it would have to be a consistent format. For example, if somebody was emailing you a report and you wanted to parse out the information from that report, you could easily do that. Hey, I just thought of a use case. I get my credit card statement from our corporate credit card company once a month, and I would like to put that into a flow. Maybe that's a live coding happy hour, but I won't show you what my expenses are.
Invoices from telcos, all sorts of things. Lots of use cases there.
Right. No, great idea. Yeah. Some of those come as PDFs. So yeah, you could do that today. Was that Kevin that said that?
Yeah, hi, I'm at a pub at the airport, so there's a little bit of background noise.
Your picture just went by this afternoon on my photo frame that has like thousands and thousands of images in there. So it cracked me up. So, the one where you're singing karaoke with the now glasses on.
Yeah.
I love that picture. All right, we've also added clustering to mid servers for Integration Hub. We've had clustering and load balancing before for discovery and for some other things, but Integration Hub is now capable of recognizing and utilizing a mid server cluster. For those of you that don't know, a mid server is a Java applet that you run on a Windows or Linux machine in your organization. It is totally secure. It makes outbound calls to the instance to say, do I have any work? Do I have any work? Do I have any work? And if Integration Hub says, yes, I want you to go do this thing, go fetch this file, go make this SQL query, whatever it is, you can now set up multiple mid servers as a cluster for fault tolerance, and it will do its thing. So you select this in the credential alias or inline in the integration if you like. I prefer using credential aliases, so that way my integration isn't hard-coded to the action on a specific instance. Made a couple of improvements for PowerShell. One is we've come up with an API that you can put right into the PowerShell script. It's called write-snc log. Helps for debugging if you want to debug something. When you write that, it obviously goes to the mid server log, just like you would expect. So if something, you wanted to dump some values or something, I'm not a big PowerShell person. I've seen it. I've helped people look at it, but I've never written any myself. This is very helpful. There's also a test credential. I understand in previous versions, testing credentials, whatever reason, from the credentials and connections section wasn't real friendly. This helps smooth that out. For those of you that do REST integrations, we've added some improvements to the REST step, including multi-part attachments. So if you've got multiple attachments on there, this can now deal with that, incoming and outgoing. You can override the MIME types. I don't know when or why this would be helpful, but I know people have asked for it. I don't know why you would want to take a PDF file and say, abracadabra, you are now application/PNG. Like, okay, whatever. And if you do have outbound requests that require multiple headers with the same key, it happens sometimes. We can now process those accordingly. Before, it used to be some crazy scripted workaround, as well as a dynamically based URL. In case you have something, I honestly can't remember what the use case for the dynamic based URL is. Connection overrides. So in Integration Hub import, which is the screenshot here, I'll cover this in a sec. Integration Hub import came out, was it Quebec? I can't remember now. I'm losing my mind. But before, we used to only be able to change the data, the connection override. So when you use connections, credentials, and credential aliases, you'd be able to override the connection. There are times when you want your integration to go to a different URL, for example. Maybe it's, you're integrating with a telco provider and their primary is offline for 30 days or 30 minutes or whatever, and you need to have a secondary in there. You could throw that in. Before, it was only possible with a pre-script from a scheduled import. You couldn't do this from data sources. You couldn't do it from Integration Hub import. Now it's just a simple pick list to do that. So it's very easy to do. Customers have been looking forward to this. We got it finally. And then Integration Hub import, which I just mentioned, is probably one of my favoriteest features in the last few releases. It is part of Integration Hub. It is built into App Engine Studio. So it does require an Integration Hub license and App Engine license. But the beauty of this is it simplifies all of the data source, transform map, field mapping, coalescing. All of that is much, much simpler to take a spreadsheet or what was the other one? Not a data source. The streaming one.
Integration Hub data stream?
Data stream, thank you. That's what it was. Yes, you can use both of those as the source. But typically your citizen developer or your low-code person is going to have a spreadsheet. They bring it in, and it easily reads in the fields, the columns from the spreadsheet, turns them into fields. Great feature. We've added some improvements. Previously, if your source spreadsheet changed column layout or even the target table, added a new table, added a new column or something, you would have to rebuild the entire map, and it was a royal pain in the ass, if you don't mind me saying. Now it recognizes this and says, hey, do you want to update? So you can do that on the fly if something changes, because experienced people with integrations know integrations change over time, and usually when you least expect it and they want a fast turnaround to fix it. When you're using a reference field, in most cases, you would only be able to use the display value. So if something was coming in as a cost center, for example, or a department code, you would get the department code and go, well, now I need to do a script to look up what the department sysid is, or because I can't really do the set display value in the script because it's not a display value. There was all these kind of crazy convolutions. This allows you to map pretty much any other attribute. If I get a department code in, but my display value on the CMN department table is actually the name field, doesn't matter. I can still map it to a different field than just the display value. So that's kind of cool. And then of course, we finally got wise and alphabetized the source and target fields to make it easier when you're doing the drag and drop. That drove me nuts the first couple times. Like, I can't find anything. It's not in the right order. I got another application that does that I want them to sort.
Chuck, can I just ask a question about that import mapping feature? Is that
Yes.
going to be backwards compatible with existing import maps that you've already built?
As far as I know, yes.
Okay. So, and has before scripts and after scripts and everything available, or is it simplified?
There's no scripting with Integration Hub import.
Okay.
There are
So it still
formulas.
uses import. It
You
still
can
uses
do
import sets and transform maps, but they're not.
underneath. It's actually using the robust transform engine. Actually,
Oh, okay. Okay. Got
yeah,
it.
I took it apart one day and went, "Oh, wow, this is fascinating." And I actually taught myself all about the ins and outs of RTE and the what's the other one? There's a reconciliation engine that goes on in the back.
The IRE. For
IRE,
CMDB.
that's what it was. I wanted to say IDR, but that's instance data replication. The IRE, yeah,
Too many
that stuff
acronyms.
is it's one of these technologies that we built on an existing technology, so it's kind of neat from that standpoint. But it's not something that you would just jump up and go, I should be using that, because it's not easy to use. Integration of import is easy to use.
Yeah, but from my experience, I just use the IRE or robust engine with integration of ETL, and I would say it is just pure love, because there was a solution in place for that for my recent project, and they were doing it all through script, getting the data in through a script, and then it was building up the relationship through a script. That was not a feasible thing, but flow design and integration of ETL, a PowerShell step is pulling in the data, putting in an Excel file, and the data source processing it automatically does all that, relationship building and everything in the back. So it's again just amazing.
Yeah.
So yeah.
All right, where are we going? There is a debug dashboard. I have not had a chance to get to this. The odd part about this is it is not available through a module on the left-hand side. But if you use the URL that you see down there, now/fdih-dashboard/home, you can easily add one, or you can hack the URL like some people like to do. But this really gives you more focus into what Flow Designer and Integration Hub are doing. I don't know if there are plans to put this in as a module or navigate to it from somewhere else. I would hope so. It seems like a weird gap. All right, next Experience UI Builder. I will preface this with, I feel like I'm getting further and further behind on this technology because I have not jumped in with both feet. one day I am going to watch Brad Tilton's videos. I just need to find my use case for what I'm going to build with this thing. Just a few highlights on this. We've put in a condition builder component. You can add this to pages, load it up with predefined queries. Can't really see it that well, but there's a whole bunch of properties on that right-hand side. So people have been looking for this. It is, as I understand, better than the regular condition builder in the platform UI. We've also combined, what do they have? A general component and a mini email client. Those have both been combined into a single, mini composer and the general composer. Helps if I read my own slides. It starts out as mini, and when you click show email details, it brings out all the details, the to, the from, the CC, all that good stuff. And if you click hide email, you can kind of guess what happens there as well. So just from a builder standpoint, it's easier to have one component. We've also added user presence. You've probably seen this for years and years and years. And the general platform UI tells you who else is looking at the record. And we've now got this in Next Experience in UI Builder. So you can put these in, brings parity with that. If you click on the person, if you've got CTI set up, you can give them a call right there. Say, why are you looking at my records? No, you don't want to say that. You say, thank you for helping.
What's
that?
Whenever someone is looking at the record, I just run away, close that record immediately. They should know I'm looking at it. Something like the story or incident. I'm not sure if it happens with anyone else. What is the case, right?
So Kevin also wrote, is there a delete email draft feature yet? I haven't seen or heard of one, but that'd be a great question to ask on Slack or the community, or send Brad or Ashley an email.
Okay, I have noted it down.
Okay. Lists, I just about spit coffee out my nose if I drank coffee, but I don't. When Ashley told me about this one, turns out that if you were in Next Experience and you clicked on a reference field like to the CMDB CI table, it would show you all of your CIs. There was no filter capability at all to do that. So in a number of places, particularly the modals, they've put the condition builder, the filter in there. Okay, well, that's nice. Why did it take us this long to figure that out? We've also got some tab enhancements. My favorite is both vertical and horizontal. You've probably seen the horizontal for related lists, that kind of thing. We can now make them vertical and rendered conditionally, or if you want to show or hide them. So pretty cool stuff. Other development and configuration funness. Emails. We are going to be covering this on a Creator Toolbox in next month, I believe. Earl is going to be hosting that one. I just found out who our product manager is. I lost track of the product manager for notifications for a number of years. If you've ever tried to put together a multilingual notification, in fact, when I was at Knowledge 10 as a customer, Jared Bennett, who is actually a real person, was doing a presentation on notifications, and somebody asked, how do you do multilingual notifications? And I raised my hand and I stood up and did what I usually do. I talk about what I learned. I did this by triggering a single event, and then there were multiple. There was a notification record for each language. So it says, "Oh, you fired incident.updated," for example, and I would have, if the user's language was Chinese, you send the Chinese mail, separate record. If the user's language, the problem with that is it didn't work very well for groups. If it went to a group, it went to a group, and it didn't resolve really well. We have finally built in a mechanism via a related list called translated notifications. There is a plugin, if I remember right, for this, but I didn't note it on this slide. What you do is you build your main notification. Let's say, for sake of argument, that it's English, And then in the related list, you create a Chinese version, a Portuguese version, a German version. If one doesn't match, it uses the default parent record. If it does match, it sends out whatever's in the related list that matches, and it works with groups. Additionally, if you've got a translation service like Google, and you have the dynamic translations and the glide notification translation plugin turned on, you can augment that to say, hey, I didn't find one. Try your best with Google Translate, for example. And you can enable that on the parent record as well. So you can use one or the other or both. That one has a $sign on it also. And you do need to have, obviously, a subscription service to the translation service, Google, IBM, whatever you use. We also now support SMIME for inbound and outbound email. Customers have been asking for this for security reasons. They want to be able to digitally sign their, encrypt their email. So SMIME is a secure MIME attachment method. We also have something that I've been looking for the last 6 years. Because in 2016, we came out with guided setup. Great. No more reading through docs pages and docs pages to find out how to set up ITSM or discovery or whatever. Guided setup was a great way to do that. But there wasn't a guided setup creation mechanism. I did one. I hacked one together because I had maint access after becoming an employee. I did one just for sake of doing it and said, there, I have an application. If you go back and get the old loaner request update set from Share, you'll see there's guided setup in there and go, wow, how did Chuck do that? Well, he did it by skinning his knuckles a lot. We now have a method for customers to do that because it's been my belief that pretty much any custom application, especially the ones you're going to share, whether it's via Share or our partners in the TPP program publishing things on the store, darn near every one of them needs a guided setup. Well, now we have a way of doing that. Hooray, I'm excited. We did an acquisition about, was it a year ago? Might not even been that long, of a company called .walk.io. Former employee, Jared Latham, started that and did AI test generation. So he uses artificial intelligence to go create ATF tests. Now, we've had starter packs for a while, and they're a great starting point. But when you're building one from scratch, ATF tests from scratch are kind of painful if you've ever built that. And that was a barrier to more people adopting ATF. And if you're not using ATF, then your upgrades take longer, your deployments take longer. You want that push button technology. This is now built into the product. It is a licensable product. There is a component of that called Cloud Runner, which we provide. We recognized when we did the headless, what was it? The headless test runner, headless browser. Can't remember what we called it, but originally ATF, you had to have a browser set up and you could click it, and people were setting up VMs with browser A, browser B, browser C, and saying, go run over there and make sure ATF runs. They said, well, we don't want to do that. We want to run it headless. So we came up with a Docker-based solution, which if you watched our live coding happy hour on that, Brad struggled to get through it, but he did it. And I believe we have a blog entry on that as well. Might be on the community. We've got a better way now. We provide the service to do that. So initially customers get 2 of these cloud-based VMs, if you will, or Dockers. I forget what they are. But basically it lets you run your browser tests on a headless system on our systems. So you don't have to go through the pain and suffering of setting those up. If you need more, there is a way to request more. I believe that's a pay-for capability as well to add additional capacity. So you say, hey, I want to run 15 tests at a time instead of the default of 2. Any questions about that?
Yeah, so just on this one, this would be in the case of scheduled test ATF test cases that we have, right? And
yes, this would be scheduled.
And it would be like we'll have to plan the test cases in such a way that there's a gap and one runs, then the other two execute and the other two execute until we have just got two test.
Right. If all you have is two, you're going to have to do a little bit of scheduling around that.
Yep. And Chuck, we have got another question. Will multi-lingual notification work with group server? I think yes. But
Yes, it will.
Yeah.
Because the groups parse out. If you're using a hard-coded group address, if I'm going directly to a distribution list address, then no. It's going to send that as a single entity because we don't know what language people in your distribution list speak. It's not going to parse out your distribution list. But if you're using a ServiceNow group and say, send this to all the Asia on-call technicians, and some members of that ServiceNow group are speaking Chinese, some are Vietnamese, some are English, whatever their language preference is on their profile, that's what it will send, or attempt to send, I should say. Yep. Good question.
Chuck, I've got a quick question here. It's Kevin here.
Yes.
Has there been a live coding happy hour or something else on the .walk product yet? Because I'm very keen to see that.
Not as far as I know, but I can certainly add it to the request list.
That would be great. Thank you.
ATF AI test generation. All right, I'm mentioning you on my handwritten notes. Did it work?
That hasn't come through yet, and there might be a bit of a delay.
It might be a while. I used your Slack handle for whatever that's worth, as I can remember.
Love it.
We've also come up with this new tool called Admin Center. This is targeted exactly who you think, to the admins, to keep track of what plugins have I installed, what plugins might I install. There's a lot of depth to this. I'm not going to go into it in great detail. Robert Fedoruk has come up with a video, and his opinion is, nice first step, it needs some work. And I think he and Corey Wesley even discussed it on CJ and the Duke podcast as well. I try to keep in touch with what's happening in the ecosystem and what people are saying about the various products and features. So great way to visually see what's going on. This one is not a pay-for product. It is available. I forget whether a plugin is required, but I believe it's on by default on upgraded and new instances. So go check that out. A couple of quick notes on mobile. Again, feel free to jump in at any point. You don't have to wait for me to stop talking. That might never happen. Mobile, we've combined our adaptive authentication component or product into mobile. What we found is a lot of instances that were IP protected, saying, hey, you can only use this instance if you're on our 10.0.1. Whatever network. People would be fine if they were on the corporate Wi-Fi, but as soon as they left the company, they couldn't get access to their instance. So what we've done is combined that with our adaptive authentication and say, if you register this device, very similar to two-factor authentication, if you will, and say, register this device, and then you can have access. So the admin takes up a few minutes for the admin to set up adaptive authentication, takes a minute or so for the user to register the device, and away they go. We've also added some updates to the mobile card builder. I love how this has matured and how much easier it is to build cards than it used to be when mobile first came out. You can add in video elements and use background images rather than just background colors. We've also made it smart enough so that the system recognizes if you have accessibility turned on. My wife has her iPhone set system default to large font. Makes it easier for a lot of things to be read, contacts, text messages, etc. Well, our mobile application prior to Tokyo was not respecting that setting. Now it does. So when you bring up the mobile application and you've got accessibility turned on for easier visual, it works with that. We've also added a number of new card templates that also have all of those capabilities for icons and backgrounds and videos. all built into them. I forget how many there were. David is going to probably tell us again in, what was it, October, November, when we do the mobile video. All right, Flow Designer, Process Automation Designer. We're getting into workflow stuff. Do I raise your hand or anything? Speak up if you go, hey, what's Process Automation Designer? Otherwise, I'm going to assume everybody's pretty well familiar with it. But if there's one person out there that doesn't know what Playbook is, stop me, please. I invite you. I don't want anybody to be scratching their head. It drives me nuts when I watch competitive videos and they just jump in with jargon, and I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? I'm new to this and I have no clue. So please, don't let me be that kind of person. So we'll give you a real quick intro in case there is somebody out there. Flow Designer has been around since our Kingston release, late 2018, I believe it was, or maybe it was early 2018. So it's about 4 years old. It is our next generation of creating workflows to automate those processes, whether it's an approval or sending notifications, updating records, doing integrations, provides that capability for you. Process Automation Designer builds on top of that to give you what we call playbooks. Now we have a product or feature called Playbook that is the visual representation of the processes you built in Process Automation Designer. I can't say it tonight. I always get tripped up on it. Process Automation Designer is meant for more of the business analyst types. I'm sure there are a number of people that would be perfectly comfortable working in Flow Designer, but it can get a little technical for some. We are working on that. The Process Automation Designer and Playbook updates include new activities for DocuSign, Adobe Sign, a number of things like that, with plenty more to come. We've also added, this one's pretty deep. I don't even know why I kept this bullet in here. Thing called a proxied data broker feature. Just improve some of the performance with the playbooks. And when people are going around the different playbooks and saying, I did this, they would have to like automatically advance the cursor to the next step or stage in that playbook. Now we automatically do that just to save a number of clicks. I did have a question from our webinar. Somebody said, hey, can I turn that off and go back to the old way? The answer I got is from the product manager was, can you give me an example of a use case where you would want that? And I did not see the response. So I don't know that the option to turn it back onto the old legacy manual click, 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 click. It was just like doubled all the clicks. Don't know if that's a good thing or not. Flow Designer now has a read-only role or series of read-only roles that go with it. So if you've got auditors or somebody who is in the system that you just want read-only, you can allow them to get into Flow Designer, but they don't have an activate button, for example, or a copy action button. You can let them just see the execution details, for example. So very safe environment for them. It's less than that good old SNC read-only role, which would give them pretty much nothing, but they can still go in and take a look at what's happening, what are the flows doing, what do the actions look like. Potentially an analyst, potentially an auditor, potentially somebody doing a code review. You can give them those roles at either the complete level of FD read or any one of the sub roles that you see there. Applied to groups, applied to users, applied same way any system role is applied. We also added a few more things to the flow diagramming view. So flow diagramming came out in San Diego. This gives you more of that flow chart-like look. What we found with the default view in Flow Designer is people would get confused if you like went down an if and there wasn't an else, and then they get down to the end of the branch and go, now where does it go? Like, well, it goes in the next level to the left. How do you know? Or they get into a for each loop. Well, what does it do when it's done? How do you break out? This gives them a different visualization of those flows, and we've added a number of new things that you can do in this flow diagramming. So a lot of good stuff. We've also added 2 new methods to the scriptable flow runner API. So if I want to launch a flow, subflow, or action from, say, a UI action, which I do periodically. I like building subflows. They're a nice library of stuff to do. You don't have to do everything in a script include anymore. You can use subflows as sort of that functional library. When you build a flow or a subflow, there's a box that says, run with roles. I want you to run while this flow is running. The person who's running it is going to temporarily get this role applied so that they can read or write accordingly. The scriptable flow runner API now has a method that says, yes, I want you to use that with roles. Okay, great, it'll run with roles. Or as a particular user, you can do that. So those are, I believe those are true false to turn them on and off. I forget what the parameter is for that, but those are part of the scriptable flow runner API now. You have to forgive me, my voice is kind of giving out. Still recovering from last weekend. I did too much karaoke and too much yelling. The decision builder, which has been around since Rome, I believe. We've had Julia Perlis, our product manager, on a couple of creator toolboxes. She gave us an update. Ed told us back in February, I believe it was, in San Diego, saying, what's on the roadmap? Said we'd be able to export the decision tables to Excel. And at first I went, why? Because there's a lot of people that can visually maneuver better in Excel than they can in ServiceNow. Even with Decision Builder, it may still be a complex task for them. So you can export the decision table so they can say, if I get this value and this value, I want that output. They can do that in Excel and bring those back in. There is a catch though. There is a decision rule view, which is available to, I forgot, I've got to look at my notes, but it's more of an advanced view. You can do more advanced things than the simple decisions. If you use the decision rule view and do some of these advanced operations, you won't then be able to export, edit in Excel, and bring them back in. So there's sort of this advanced mode that puts some secret things in there. I don't know if that is going to be remedied in the future or not. We can certainly ask Julia. And then just something that I found when I was poking around, when you're building a new action and you add a new step, it used to have that side-by-side view. And I was always going, where's my stuff? And it's like, oh, now it's on the left or it's on the right. It's now in this vertical list format, which I find much more appealing because I don't have to look as hard for where is send notification. Quick update on authentication. We've added some information security pages. Those of you that generate certs and the certificate requests, it's a whole bunch of very nice manageable pages to help you address the CSRs, generate the CAs, and in some cases you can see use the preferred CA on your SYOC tables. So it does require a plugin, but makes it much easier to manage those certs. I've not taken a deeper look into these yet. So we've had custom URLs for a while. Many customers use them. Instead of instance name.service-now.com, they can put a custom URL to their instance. Helpdesk.mycompany.com, for example, could go to a dedicated portal. But if they got multiple portals, they may in fact have different IDPs behind them. A public portal for a government agency, for example, may use Google, Facebook, whatever as the IDP. You can now attach a separate IDP to each custom URL. So for example, public.government.gov would use Facebook or whatever IDP you set up on there. But your internal employees may be going to a support center with a different URL. Let's use our our multi-SSO provider that we set up for that. So cool stuff, just letting you do A, B, or neither. This one intrigues me. I have not had a chance to look into this, but I am definitely going to. We have a live coding happy hour later next month, I think it is. I got to look at my calendar again. I forget when it is. When you create an authentication right now, let's say we're doing a REST API off to YouTube, just as a generic example. When I assign a credential to that API, that OAuth credential is like a system account. Every interaction that's done with that other system is done through that one single account. This allows us to associate a non-admin user's OAuth credentials to do that interaction as that person. So if I'm onboarding a new employee, for example, and I need to go to Workday to get their tasks, I can do that as that employee, and it would be authenticated and audited and trackable as that employee made that interaction. My use case is I want to be able to say schedule Twitter messages, set up something like Hootsuite, set up a Twitter message so that Earl's messages go out as Earl, Lauren's messages go out as Lauren, Chuck's messages go out as Chuck. It's not authenticating as ServiceNow or developer program or some generic account. So we can have that authenticity to those accounts. So again, I got to play with this one. Other random cool stuff. Question? Comment?
Yeah, we have got a couple of questions there. So,
will Flow Designer replace workflow in the future? Yeah. You've got the option to use the legacy workflow. I don't encourage anybody to build anything net new on the legacy workflow. It's now further behind in capabilities than Flow Designer. Okay. And somebody keeps asking me, well, when will you have rollback? You won't. When will you have turnstiles? You won't. Because those are features on the legacy workflow that needed to be put in because it was more of a monolithic end-to-end workflow. Flow Designer is meant to be almost like business rules. You get in, you do something quick, and you're done. Well, how do you roll back if you need another approval? You trigger the flow again. It's not a big deal to run the same flow multiple times. In fact, sometimes it makes more sense to do that, or a subflow. So at this point, I would not build anything new in legacy workflow. It's not worth it. You're just creating technical debt for yourself. By the same token, I don't recommend people just say, hey, I've got this change workflow that's been around for 16 years and we've been building and maintaining it, and we'd like to convert it to Flow Designer. That probably doesn't have any ROI on it. If you're coming to a point where you're saying, our company has suggested that we do a new implementation, either it's a new app, or maybe you're just doing a complete ground up Z-boot, we've done a merger and acquisition and we want to scrap everything and start over. Build that all in Flow Designer. Again, that's all net new. Don't try and re-implement the old workflows in there. So it's a slightly different mindset, but it works really well in Flow Designer. Hope that makes sense.
Yeah. But another question that I usually come across is people ask, are there any further updates coming in the workflow?
No.
Which I think is a no, and Flow Designer will be continually improved over time. So
yes,
it's a better option.
That is correct. Unless something catastrophically is found, like, oh my gosh, we've had a huge security hole in workflow for the last 14 years, we're not going to be making any more maintenance to it. There is no more workflow PM that I'm aware of.
Yep, we have got another one. So from one of us, in Next Experience UI, when in any table we don't have record, shows it with mobiles no record. Yes, we can. So yes, Anubhav, we can change the display image. I will share that document link with you.
Yeah, I thought somebody made a video. Wasn't that you, Ashan, or was it somebody else?
Must have been someone else, but I think it was on Slack a couple of days back.
Somebody either posted in the community or made a video on how you can customize that.
Yeah.
Yep.
You can change that. Yep.
I love that image. I mean, just having an image there that says no records rather than just an empty list is very useful. All right, random cool stuff. Log protection. So if you've ever dealt with the, what is it, CIS Audit, CIS History, those are supposed to be your auditing tables where things happen and your auditors say, show me the evidence of X. They are not completely read-only. If you use a glide record API, you can modify them. And auditors don't like that loophole. In fact, a lot of financial people don't like that loophole, and a lot of government people don't like that either. We have created a plugin that provides the capability to make those tables truly immutable. You cannot change them, even with a glide record query. It works on the system tables. You can't just say, hey, I'd like to make my CMDB completely immutable too. No, it's not going to work that way. Unless a table is listed here or an extension of one of those tables, you can't just apply this log protection to any old table in the system. So for better or for worse, I can see people maybe accidentally getting crazy with this, but you can't. Data filtration. I think we did a video on this. Yes, we did. We did. So data filtration is a complement. It's an what's the word I'm looking for? Not necessarily an extension of ACLs, but ACLs we recognized had a number of issues with them. And those of you who have ever had the requirement to say, well, I only want to allow access to this group, and immediately your hair catches on fire going, no, please use a role. Let's set up a role, because doing groups in ACLs is a pain in the ass. Or even worse, I want to only allow access to this table, record, field, whatever, take your pick on whatever ACL thing you want to do. Only make it available to people in this IP address range. Like, oh my God, I don't even know where to start with that. Data filtration adds a pragmatic way to do that. It is non-scriptable. You cannot write script in here for very good reason. The condition builder is on a deny method. Dhruv Gupta and Ashutosh Manat did a wonderful video a few weeks ago on this. I followed up with a Creator Toolbox the very next day, and our product manager was available for that. It was kind of touch and go whether he was going to make it or not. But these are a very clever way of doing this. Now, they do run before ACLs. The number one question I got out of this is, does it get rid of that annoying message that says 20 records removed due to security constraints? The answer is no, not yet. That is a goal. We have not been able to attain that without literally digging up all the roads and all the pipes under the roads and all the bones under the pipes under the roads and rebuilding some serious platform stuff. That is coming, but will require a lot of regression testing. For the time being, this is a very easy way to implement a lot of those weird use cases that required scripting in ACLs, because a lot of our federal and financial customers cannot do scripting in ACLs. That is verboten. They're not allowed to touch them. They cannot do that. So this gives them a way to implement those features without scripting. That was where the number one request was from. If you do have, I think it's the bullet 5 on there, says if you've got things like a glide record can read or can delete or whatever, those are still valid. Those will still work in your script as necessary. So it will evaluate the data filtration and then the ACLs to go, can I read this record? Answer is yes. No questions about that one?
No.
Okay, good. All right, we do support IPv6 in the logs now. So if you've got both canonical and expanded, so you've probably seen IPv6 addresses. They're like 8 groups of 4 hex digits separated by colons. Well, if all the stuff is a 0, you can use the canonical and it will collapse all those. So you might see, 4 digits, then colon, 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 and some more 4 digits, rather than 0000 colon 000. If you are using this and you have used the scriptable APIs SNC IP address v4 and v6, we now have a single API just called SNC IP address that takes care of both of those at once. Is this the one? I forget if it's this one or the other one. I thought you needed to turn this on with the help of support. I'll have to check my notes on that one. I think this one may be one of those things that requires main access. SCIM, SCIM, which is pretty cool. It is a standard for transporting user and group information over HTTP. Sounds like a really cool REST request. Very common for integrating with IDPs. You say, give me all the people, and it gives you this JSON payload or XML payload that has users and groups in one batch. So it's been around for a while. We now have the ability to use this as a client or as a provider. Cool thing about this is, say, for example, I add Ishan to a group. That can trigger an action that goes and tells Workday what to do and sends Workday a whole bunch of information in one transaction. Say, here's the updated information, rather than here's the groups, here's the people, here's the association of groups to people. Makes it much easier for doing that. So again, I haven't had a chance to dig into this one. I love integrations, and I will get to this eventually. Speaking of integrations, we've had GraphQL APIs for a while. I think that was Rome, might have even been Paris or Orlando. It's been out for a while. When it comes to streaming larger payloads, GraphQL is often used with like Service Portal, for example, or UI Builder. So the client is making a request, not via REST, but making a request via GraphQL. It's like the next generation of REST APIs, and REST was the next generation of SOAP. You kind of get the idea. Well, when it came to streaming content, you would need to download all the records before you got to see the content. That's why you need streaming, is so I don't have to wait for everything to be delivered before I can start interacting with it. We now have an @stream directive, similar to the predecessor @defer, but works a whole lot better, as you would expect. So if you're doing GraphQL and you need streaming, there it is. We've also come out with this thing called upgrade plans, and we covered these on, was it last week? The 26th? No, 28th? I forget, 30th. The 30th of August, there's a Creator Toolbox video on our developer channel about upgrade plans. It allows you to streamline the process of doing the upgrades and deploying your applications between instances. Really helps out with that whole pipeline. Now, previously, people would do these via update sets. This is all done through the app repo, which is kind of like your private store. So when you go to My Company Applications, you can see what's installed. You will see your applications, and if there are plugins missing or whatever, it will tell you that. If you make changes, the whole idea is to reduce the time it takes to do an upgrade. This is an upgrade plan. So you would run this in Tokyo before you upgrade to Tokyo patch 6, or before you upgrade to Utah. This is not available in San Diego. That's the most common question I get on this one. Is like, can I use this to get to Tokyo? Unfortunately not. You got to get to Tokyo to start using upgrade plans. But this is around our whole philosophy of how can we make upgrades easier and faster for customers. These plans really bundle together all those pieces, whether they're scoped applications or global applications that are scoped. It'll grab all this stuff and put it together in a versioned history to say, this is what you need to install, to upgrade. And then, of course, away you go. So I can't remember the woman's name right now, but when we did this on the Creator Toolbox, she did a great job explaining this all out, and a wonderful demo. She showed you what it took in dev, and then she published it in dev, and it showed up in test. She installed it on test, and then eventually got to production in just a few clicks. It was amazing. And in case you haven't already heard the news, we now support ES6+. That means pieces of 6, pieces of 7, pieces of 12, aka ECMAScript 2021. So you can use many of those modern JavaScript features that people have been asking for at least 6 years. There was a 6 or 7-year-old feature on the idea portal, and a lot of comments on the community about this. We can now say, yes, it's there. So if you've been looking forward to this, I need to do a little ramping up on the exact syntax and where and why I would use it. Earl and Lauren did a live coding happy hour, went very well. I still need to, let's say, convert a few things. This is for server-side code. Obviously, your client-side code could use whatever the browser would support. But server-side code is, whether it's a service portal server script or a UI action or whatever. There are some gaps, like we don't support the, wait or async features. So there's a few things where there are gaps, and if you do feel you need those, you certainly put in a request on the idea portal and say, hey, I'd like to see this implemented. And a use case would be very nice. So that's what I've got. You all know how to upgrade your PDI, etc. Oh, we have new questions. Let me read through some of these. Thank you for the link, Ashan. That was very helpful. devlink.sn/Tokyo.
I think we just had one question that we missed. So anyone, any demo video for ATF Cloud Runner? I didn't find anything on that directory for that.
Yeah, I don't think we have anything. We don't have anything on Cloud Runner yet, and I don't think there's anything on the Tokyo schedule, but we shall see. If we can find a product manager to sit down and show it to us, I'd love to see it.
Nice. All right. So if there are any questions, guys, please feel free to, when you speak. Again, it's not a formal meeting, it's a dev meetup.
Absolutely.
I do have a small quiz as you go. I'll just bring it up.
What? Nobody told me there was a test.
Can you direct me to documented links video? I think we don't have it yet.
I know the advocates haven't created one. I don't know if anyone else has. It might be out there. I just don't know about it.
Yeah. All right. So, guys, if there no more questions, I will probably just. Hey, Kevin is enjoying his life, right?
I have one since, and thank you for the presentation, Chuck. And it seems you offered, and nobody has any ServiceNow questions. I want to know about the cosplay.
And I want to know how you changed your font on Zoom. Did you see that when his camera was off, or is that your image? That was the image.
It's an image. It's a trick. It's a trick.
That's a great trick. I love that. I'm going to have to do something like that. All right, you asked. Let's see if I can find it quickly. Photos. So I do mainly, this past weekend, I was in Atlanta, Georgia, and we have there's an annual nerd convention is what I'll call it, called Dragon Con. And sci-fi, fantasy, movies, TV, books, robotics, it's all over the map. One of the tracks is the digital media track. It used to be called the podcasting track, where you can learn how to make a podcast, or what it takes to convert your podcast to live streaming, just anything and anything related to Twitch, YouTube, podcasts, etc. When I go, I generally dress up in Star Trek motif. So let's see if we can get that up. There's a picture my friend Kyle took. So, you know, I've got various Star Trek uniforms that I wear.
Are you an admiral there? Is that what's happening?
Oh, you are quick with reading the insignia. Wow, that was fast.
4 pips, 5 pips.
Four pips on a bar, or yeah, 5 on a bar is a fleet admiral. So that's as high a rank as you can get. But my other ones are not as high rank. Actually, I lost one of my pips. That one's supposed to be a captain, but they're magnetic, and I lost one at dinner. And during karaoke that night, I also lost another one, so I was demoted to lieutenant. You know, somewhere along the line. There's still 3 on there. I'm gonna have to buy new ones or whatever. The other costume I do is during the parade. I dress up as we have a Santa Claus at the end of the parade. So we have the robot Santa from Futurama and a bunch of people from all over dress up with us. We've got like 3 fries in there, including a lady fry. We got Zap Brannigan. If you're Futurama fans, this is kind of funny. We got Roberto, a Darth Bender and a Pink Bender. And then I dress up as Professor Hubert Farnsworth. And my gag this year was I carried a Holy Bible. So Professor Farnsworth's tagline in the cartoon is "Good news, everyone." Well, I said this year I'm going to get a Bible, and I was walking the parade route asking everybody, "Have you heard the good news, everyone?" And you know, some people laughed, some people just let it go. So yeah, we have a lot of fun with that. It takes about an hour to put that on and an hour to take it off, but well worth it. You know, here's some behind the scenes of like Bender getting hooked up. We've got Amy Wong putting things together, and then you see just strange things like Pinhead and Santa. It's a lot of fun. The Stay Puft Marshmallow Man was taking a drink. It's a really bizarre situation at that place. My lower decks uniform, that one I'm also a captain. So a lot of fun.
Good question, Wayne. I like it.
Because of the ability to host the capacity of people, it kind of started there almost 30 years ago. The parade started in 2000, I think. Might have been 99. I can't remember. We only started going in 2009, and started out as just, hey, let's go check it out. We had been to the Podcast Expo in 2005, 6, and 7, and 8. And in 2008, they moved it from California to Las Vegas. But it totally changed the vibe of what that Podcast Expo was all about. And I was like, let's go check out DragonCon next year. So Craig Stepp and Craig is the guy who works at ServiceNow in charge of all the Cloud Labs instances. We've been good friends since like 2005, long before he started at ServiceNow. And we were watching the parade go by that year. And I said, I can't tell when it's over because the crowd was just so dense that you really couldn't see that well. And I said, Craig, someday, some way, I'm going to put a Santa Claus at the end of this parade because the parade's not over till Santa Claus goes by. Well, the parade coordinator got wind of this idea, and she absolutely loved it. She said every year she would harass me. Where's my Santa? Where's my Santa? And we started going as Men in Black because it was easy. We had suits and glasses. It really was a low barrier of entry to do Men in Black. And then in 2014, my friend Scott said, I'd like to go to DragonCon. And I put 2 and 2 together. Scott's a big guy. We needed a Santa. He wants to go to DragonCon. Scott, you want to be Santa? And we built that costume. Never built any cosplay in our lives before. It was just, I wish I had a video of how that thing was made because it was just so much fun putting wastebaskets on our head and sticking our hands into hamster balls and just holding Pringles cans up to our head going, we're shopping for shapes. You don't know where to shop. Like, what can we glue together? It was a lot of fun. unfortunately, this is the last year Scott is going to be able to do Santa for us. But we already have another backup Santa in the plan. So Gary, another good friend from Florida, said he'd be willing to step in. In fact, I think he was a substitute one year for Scott. Scott broke his Achilles heel or something, or whatever it was, and Gary filled in one year. So he's already been trained.
Awesome. Thank you.
And no, I'm not going to be wearing any of that to Knowledge. Yeah, Atlanta it wasn't hot so much as it was humid. And our hotel for the last several years is quite some distance from the host hotels. So the core of DragonCon takes place at the Marriott, Hilton, and Hyatt, which are, you can walk between tunnels to get to them. And then the Westin is a little further away, and the Sheraton is disconnected as well. But they're all within a few blocks of each other. Ours is like over 1 kilometer away. And having to walk up the hill and down the hill and up the other hill to get there, I'm dripping sweat in that heat and humidity by the time I get there. So it was nasty, but it was fun. We did karaoke with the ServiceNow karaoke app again for about four and a half hours. And that's kind of why my voice is still a little raw. I stole when we were in Sydney, we had the little tent cards, where you could scan the QR code. Yeah. I stole those. I've got 2 of them left, and I brought them to DragonCon. In fact, they even still say they acknowledge on the side. I just went into the app and said, "You're using the same party code." And it was great. People walk up and scan them. It was brilliant. It was a lot of fun. So yeah, I repurposed the karaoke tent cards from college. I did find one bug while we were there. I think I'm the only one who noticed, because we'd never had so many people singing karaoke that this was a problem. I had done like the very first song mainly as an audio check while everybody was fine tuning something. My second song came up and it said, you are 50, you're in position 50. So it will tell you how long you have to wait. So it says position 50, you have to wait 25 minutes. I went, no, that's not even possible. I went, that is a bug. And it would count down, 20 minutes, and when you get down to like 3 minutes, it would reset and say, okay, 57 minutes. So I know it's showing me the remainder of time that should be hours and minutes. Where's my hours? So the next morning I went into the app and I discovered what the problem was. I'm using glide duration to literally add all of the times of the songs. And I think I add like a minute or so to do some time in between while people switch up songs. So if you take a 5-minute song and a 4-minute song, you get about 10 minutes to wait. Well, when I would return, what I would return was, I thought I was going to say 150 minutes, for example. Doesn't work that way. It just returns the remainder. There's a method for glide duration to give you the time back, and you can format it. It's like get by format. Someone can look this up for me in the glide duration API docs. But when I would say get by format, I just had an M in there for the minutes. I thought, well, good, it'll give me just the minutes. It gives you just the minutes, not the value in total minutes. So what I did is I just said, fine, I'm not going to return an integer anymore, because it was trying to do a parse int around that. It's nice when you write your own apps and you have your own APIs and you only call them once. It makes change management at the API layer a lot easier. I said, fine, I'm switching it from an int to a string. Just give me hour, colon, and minute. And took the label out of there and said, fine. At the end of the day, it worked. So I fixed it in dev. I haven't pushed it to prod yet, but it'll be there soon. It was just one of those.
I'm waiting for the karaoke app to have a Y2K bug.
That was kind of, yeah, that's a very good analogy. It's like it had its own Y2K bug. And it was, this little number down in the corner that nobody really knows what it means. Yeah, there's a clock icon and it said 54 MIN. Okay, am I the only one? It's been there for over 2 years, and this is the first time we've had capacity big enough to see it. So always do load testing on your apps.
Cool.
All right.
I have
Didn't
to run
expect
off.
that discussion to go in that direction. We went from like cosplay back to glide duration somehow.
Everything's connected.
In my brain, it is anyway.
I have to run, Chuck. It was really good. Thank you so much for everything.
Live long and prosper.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. See you later, Chuck. See
All
everybody.
right. So, guys, we do have a quiz for we'll drop off. Let's just quickly do it. Hey, Chuck,
Oh, man.
So, Chuck, you're happy for you to stay around. Like, if you want to drop off as well, like, you know, it is just a 5 minutes, I think. So, or you want to play as well. So,
Oh, that makes it easy.
yeah. So just hello. So guys, you can just scan the QR code, and it'll start off. So we did have a small bug on the Jeopardy app as well, Chuck. I'm not sure what exactly it was. So is everyone in? Oh, someone said. What, 5 people?
After we hit one of the thumbs up or something, what do we do from there?
So just do it. Basically.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah. Yeah. So 6 people.
Whoops. I tried to turn the sad face off, so one of those was mine accidentally, and the other was turning it off.
I plan on building this trivia application on ServiceNow. Just.
I know. I want to build one of these too. We need something for this for like the meetups.
Yeah. All right. So, guys, we do have 10 quick questions here, 30 seconds to answer. Faster answers, more point, and to just save time, the leaderboard will be shown at the very end.
How can we only have 18 people in there? 15 people, but we've got like 75 likes.
Looks like it's a bug with
someone's robotic button smasher is working.
You can join in. And now the names are also coming up with these. About 14, right? Cool. Let's start off with the quiz. So, what year was ServiceNow founded in? Back to basics.
I might have. This one could go either way.
I used a couple of them, that are quite standard.
It depends whether or not you want to know when Fred Luddy started writing code or when it became a company itself.
Both options are on the screen, I think. Yeah, 2004. That's correct. But yeah, 2003 was when Fred Luddy started with the, writing the code.
That is correct.
Right. With which one of can we create translated version of email notifications? Studio, multilingual notifications, hyper automated notifications, multinational notifications, hyper automated notifications. Oh, everyone was paying attention, I think.
I mean, you could do them via Studio, but you can't do them without the multilingual notifications turned on.
Yeah. So what is ServiceNow's purpose?
Oh, somebody please tell me.
I have got a typo there. So this was dreaming boldly. I have made it boldly.
Dreaming boldly. That's nice.
But it is making the world better for everyone. Correct. This is a very common question. I think again everyone should have the answer for this easily if you search.
Oh, that you. It's no longer what you think it is, Ashan. They changed that a few years ago.
Is it? Oh.
Yep. It's now a historical.
ServiceNow offices.
Yeah.
So what it is right now?
Now it's made up information. It's
made up
nothing.
information.
Yeah,
Okay.
it used to be the Hooters restaurants.
Okay.
That was, I believe that was also Jared Bennett that came up with that.
What is the release date of Tokyo or Tokyo Delta? What I've done there. Tokyo general availability. Yeah.
That one I know. I shouldn't be playing this. I get too competitive. If I end up on the top of the leaderboard, I'm gonna default to whoever's next. And if somebody beats me, good. Hey, I didn't hit submit. I'm just really slow. I thought I did. Wait a minute. No, that is not the right answer.
I think that's like mistake on my end.
It
but
is.
yeah, it's
GA is September 21st.
Yeah, I think I've not selected the right one. Sorry about that.
Points. I'm calling shenanigans on this thing.
Okay, how many offices ServiceNow has globally?
Where did you get this answer?
So I follow the ServiceNow page on Instagram, and they posted a trivia.
Really?
A couple of days. Yeah, so I just picked it up.
Okay, I clearly don't know the answer to this one.
Yeah. So they had live at now or ServiceNow, either of the Instagram handles.
Huh.
Yes, 75. That's the right answer.
Has anybody been watching the videos by Robert Blackwell on YouTube? The Our World, Our Work? Episode 4 came out yesterday. They're really good. They're really well produced and a lot of fun. They're short. They're only like 10 minutes tops. It's kind of like watching a travel show, but it's about ServiceNow people and the places. So far, he's been to mostly India sites.
The Bangalore and
Yep.
life at Hyderabad. Yeah, I did see. What does high stand for in Hyderabad? But they are primarily talking about how life is. I think that two of them came out. Yep.
I answered that one. I answered it too slowly.
You're trying to lose.
I was talking.
What is the name of next ServiceNow release? It's very easy.
Dear Lord.
Ukraine. Looks like.
Don't get me started. UV? Hey, if I was in charge of naming, it would have been called Utrecht. Because Utah, Ukraine are not cities, so it can't be that, right?
Yeah, looks like I'll try.
Boop. It is, in fact, Utah.
Yeah.
Okay, what comes after Utah? I said it earlier.
I think I missed that.
Do you want the HTTPS in here?
No. So we just want the link. What is the short link to take you developer training blog? I shared it on the chat. everyone.
Oh, I got it wrong. I was going to the, oh, I got that one wrong.
Oh, no one answered correct. Guys, so it's always, so all the short links are.
I was going to
there.
type that. I typed devlink.sn/blog.
So
It's there.
Yeah.
That's just not the right link.
Oh. Let us move to the next one, but it's devlink.sn/Tokyo. And if you do it /blog, it just takes you to the directory, if I'm not wrong, Chuck. How can you get a ServiceNow developer t-shirt for free? So there's a challenge.
Join
going on.
ServiceNow. That's a good one.
Nice. So yeah, build with AES challenge is going on. The deadline has been extended for 2 more weeks. So you've got time until 19th of September to submit your entries and build with App Engine Studio.